Richard Harrison is an American actor and occasionally a writer, director and producer. Harrison was very prolific and worked with most of the better-known names in European B-movies during the 1960s and 1970s, branching out to exploitation films shot all over the world in the early 1970s. He worked with directors ranging from established names like Antonio Margherita and Marino Girolami to infamous Z-movie directors like Paolo Solve, Godfrey Ho and Alfonso Brescia. Harrison's co-stars ranged from major and minor stars of the time like Anita Ekberg, Klaus Kinski, Fernando Sancho and Helmut Berger to obscure cult actors such as Mike Monty, Romano Christoph and Mike Cohen. Early life. Born in Salt Lake City, Utah, Harrison left for Los Angeles at 17, where he found work first at the Vic Tanny and Burt Goodrich gyms. Many people working in the film industry trained at the gym, and these encounters led Harrison to study acting. In 1961 he married Loretta Nicholson, the daughter of American International Pictures co-chief James H. Nicholson. American film appearances. He appeared in a Santa Monica stage production, then in TV, then in small parts in feature films. Harrison worked at 20th Century Fox under acting coach Sandy Mizer, where he made an appearance at the beginning of South Pacific along with Tom Laughlin and Ron Ely. He eventually signed a 3-film deal with American International Pictures, which led him to Italy, where he remained for almost 3 decades, appearing in sword and sandal films, then Euro spy films and spaghetti westerns. Formal acting studies set Harrison apart from other muscular American actors working in Italy in the early 1960s, such as Brad Harris and Steve Reeves, with whom he is often grouped. 1960s B-movies. During the 1960s Harrison appeared mostly in B-movies, many of which are now considered to be cult films. Harrison relocated to Italy in the early 1960s with his first wife Loretta, initially in a 3-picture contract with producer Italo Zingarelli, and became a minor star in sword and sandal films, Euro spy films and spaghetti westerns. His first Italian film and first starring role was in The Invincible Gladiator, directed by Alberto De Martino and Antonio Momplet. Arguably Harrison's most well-known film from his early career is the western Gunfight at Red Sands, directed by Riccardo Blasco in 1963. Gunfight at Red Sands is also noteworthy for being the first Italian western to feature an Ennio Morricone score. Harrison turned down Sergio Leone's A Fistful of Dollars and recommended Clint Eastwood for the role. Harrison joked that was his greatest contribution to the cinema. The 1968 film Gioco Invocadio, Amore aka Vengeance, directed by Antonio Margherita, is another favorite among spaghetti western fans. Luciano Martino's 1965 movie Secret Agent Fireball, Harrison's first Euro spy film, is also often cited as his best film in the genre, and one of his better earlier films. He again played the role of CIA agent Fleming in a sequel, Killers Are Challenged, in 1966. 1970s exploitation films. It was during this time that Richard Harrison started to show up in more and more low-budget features all over the globe. Harrison started sporting a mustache, which became something of a trademark for him in the coming years. Although the general quality of his 1970s filmography is somewhat low, some films from the time have gone on to cult status. Harrison's career dwindled slowly in the 1970s at the same rate as the spaghetti western died. He began appearing in low-budget movies shot all over the world. In Egypt, with the Shaw brothers, in Hong Kong starring in the title role of Marco Polo and playing the German commander von Waldense in the Boxer Rebellion. Harrison worked in Turkey, Farouk, Frank, Agrama, and in a Yugoslavian war film, the 1979 effort Paklina Otok, directed by Vladimir Tadeve. He made most of his better quality 70s films during the earlier half of the decade, like the comic spaghetti western Due Fratelli aka Two Brothers in Trinity, which he also directed. His co-star in Due Fratelli was the Irish-American actor Donald O'Brien, another veteran of Italian B-films. Harrison and O'Brien played two estranged brothers rejoined after receiving an inheritance. Harrison, a lovable rogue, O'Brien, a pious Mormon. Harrison wants to spend his money on building a bordello and comic adventures in the spirit of the Terence Hill, Bud Spencer hit My Name is Trinity follow. Other notable early 70s films were Churchill's Leopards, directed by Maurizio Prado and also starring Giacomo Rossi Stewart and Klaus Kinski, in which Harrison got to play a double role. Aqua Santa Joe, directed by Mario Gariazzo and starring Ty Howardin and Lincoln Tate, an otherwise mediocre western worth mentioning for having Harrison cast against type as a villain, and Dig Your Grave, Friend, Sabbath's Coming, directed by Juanbastos, a western livened up by the presence of Spanish actor Fernando Sancho. Harrison acted in several films with Sancho, the archetypal Mexican bandit of paella and spaghetti westerns, most of which were produced or directed by Ignacio F. Aquino. Some of the arguably most dubious films Harrison made during the decade were Actung, The Desert Tigers, for Paolo Solve, Black Gold Dossier, also by Solve, and Voodoo Baby aka Black Orgasm, by notorious Italian director Aristide Massacessor, also known as Joe D'Amato. Actung, The Desert Tigers, also starring Harrison's friend and frequent co-star Gordon Mitchell and featuring Mike Monty in a small role, was a collage of footage from Solve's previous World War II films mixed with new prison camp and war action scenes, including somewhat tasteless torture footage. Black Gold Dossier, again co-starring Gordon Mitchell, was a spy epic set in an unnamed Middle Eastern country, spiced up by liberal use of stock footage and female lead Florence Cairo, who spends the majority of the film in different stages of undress. Voodoo Baby was a sexploitation film that Massacessor added hardcore porno scenes to without Harrison's knowledge and much to his disgust. One of the more successful Harrison films from the latter half of the 70s was the Italian crime thriller La Belva Colonel Mitra aka Beast with a Gun, directed by Sergio Gricco, also starring Helmut Berger and Marissa Mell. Harrison played the part of Police Commissioner Giulio Santini, with top-billed Berger as psychotic criminal Nanni Vitali, out to kill Santini and everyone else who testified against him in court. Although La Belva Colonel Mitra is no classic, it's a well-directed movie, and the contrast between Harrison's underplayed style and Berger's manic performance works to its favor. However, La Belva Colonel Mitra is not without some controversy. Apparently, at Berger's request, Harrison's scenes were cut down in the film. For additional trivia, a scene from La Belva Colonel Mitra shows up on TV in the Quentin Tarantino film Jackie Brown. Probably the most interesting curio in Harrison's 70s filmography is the 1971 film El Explosion, directed by Mark Simonon and co-starring Mylene Demongeau. The 1978 martial arts spy film Jim Caterkiller is also of curio interest, if only for the presence of Bruce Lee imitator Bruce Lee, European softcore star Nadia Ska and Harrison's son Sebastian, overseas for Z movies. In the 1980s, Harrison found himself mostly stranded in B-movie action films made in the Philippines and Hong Kong. Although generally considered the lowest point of Harrison's career, some of his 80s films have gained a cult audience of their own. In the Philippines, Harrison acted in 5 ultra-low-budget actioners, best classified as Z movies, produced by K.Y. Lim for Silver Star Film Company. 3. Fireback, Hunters Crossing and Blood Debts were directed by Teddy Page, and 2. Intrusion, Cambodia and Rescue Team by John Gale. All were bad, but the 3 Page films exceptionally so, mixing near-sadistic violence with childlike, enthusiastic naivety reminiscent of the films of Ed Wood. In the books Gods in Polyester and Gods in Spandex, Harrison states that he wrote some of the screenplays for the Filipino films practically overnight, using a pseudonym. The Fireback screenplay Harrison wrote is credited to Timothy George, a pseudonym usually used by Don Gordon Bell, one of the expatriate American actors working for Silver Star. Harrison also mentions that the Silver Star films he acted in didn't have complete shooting scripts and many scenes were improvised on the spot, which contributed to their disjointed narrative. Silver Star recycled the same group of American and European expatriate actors from film to film, all of whom appeared in the Harrison vehicles. Mike Monti, an old acquaintance of Harrison from the Italian days who had migrated to the archipelago, James Gaines, Romano Christoph, Bruce Barron, Anne Milhench and others. Harrison struck a friendship with Christoph, one of the leading Silver Star actors, and later invited him to Italy to act in a film he produced and directed, Three Men on Fire. At the time they were made, the poor quality of the Filipino films hurt Harrison's reputation. Over the years, they have attracted some cult interest in bad movie fandom. Although he remembers Teddy Page fondly, Harrison doesn't have too many kind words for him and working for Silver Star. In Hong Kong, Harrison starred in what was supposed to be a small number of low-budget martial arts, ninja films, directed by Chinese filmmaker Godfrey Ho, with whom he was already familiar from working for the Shaw Brothers in the 1970s. However, Ho later re-edited his scenes into several more films in a cut-and-paste style of filmmaking that has since made him infamous. Harrison found himself the unwilling star of almost a dozen different movies, with titles like Cobra vs. Ninja, Golden Ninja Warrior and Diamond Ninja Force. Like the Silver Star productions, the Ninja films have since become cult films. Disgusted with that outcome, Harrison returned to the United States. In 1991, Harrison played Jack Roth in the drama film Lies of the Twins opposite Aidan Quinn, Isabella Rossellini and a Man. Directed by Tim Hunter, much of the movie was shot at Harrison's beachfront home in Malibu. The film was generally well received by critics upon release. Harrison subsequently slowed down his film work over the next few years. His last movies to date were the 1993 erotic thriller Angel Eyes and the 2000 film Jerks. Angel Eyes was directed by the prolific cinematographer, director Gary Graver, and starred Eric Estrada, John Philip Law and Monique Gabrielle. Some of the more noteworthy movies in Harrison's later career were the Moroccan film Amok and Dark Mission, by the both loved and hated Spanish director Jesus Franco. The latter might not be much better than Harrison's Filipino films in terms of quality, but did have a more interesting than usual cast featuring Christopher Lee, Christopher Mitchum and French adult film star Brigitte Lahaie. One of few serious roles that Harrison portrayed in the 1980s was that of American President Andrew Johnson in Ali Hatami's Iranian production Haji, Washington. The film was completed in 1982, but was not screened in Iran until 1998. Although Harrison remains little known in the English-speaking world, he is a cult figure among B-movie, sword and sandal and Euro spy fans. The recent resurgence of spaghetti western fandom has also generated new interest in Harrison's work in the genre. Despite that, he is still often somewhat unfairly labeled as a camp Z actor, probably because Harrison's worst movies are the easiest to find today. Many of the Godfrey Ho ninja films are available on mid-price Region 1 and Region 2 DVD, while most of Harrison's 1960s spaghetti westerns are available only on ex-rental videotapes found at flea markets. second-hand movie stores and eBay, if at all. Before the damage done to his reputation by the Z-movie era of the 1980s, Harrison had a long, solid career in European B-movies, which is often overlooked by fans of his weaker films. He has now founded a multi-system electronics company named Gladiator Electronics with his son Sebastian. Partial filmography. Bibliography. Harrison contributed pieces on his 1970s and 1980s films to two compilations, Gods in Polyester, or A Survivor's Account of 70s Cinema Obscura, Gods in Spandex, or A Survivor's Account of 80s Cinema Obscura.